As a recovering people-pleasing nice guy myself, I want to talk today about how to actually get out of this pattern. And to be clear, when I say nice guy, I'm talking about the pattern that Dr. Robert Glover describes in his book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. The chronic people-pleasing, conflict avoidance, putting everyone else's needs first, while secretly hoping they'll reciprocate. It's not about being genuinely kind, it's about being strategically nice because deep down we don't believe we're worthy of love just as we are. And if you recognize yourself in that pattern, you probably know the hell I'm talking about. The exhaustion from constantly accommodating, the resentment that builds when people don't appreciate everything we do for them, even though, to be fair, we never actually told them what we needed. The loneliness of never being fully known because we're always performing. The way out of nice guy hell requires 3 shifts, and they build on each other. We're going to start with what has to change inside you, then move to how that changes your behavior, and finally talk about how you protect that new version of yourself in relationships. The first shift is an internal one and involves changing where you look for validation. Right now, if we're stuck in the nice guy pattern, we're probably constantly scanning other people to figure out if we're okay. Our sense of worth goes up and down based on whether people seem happy with us. We walk into a room and immediately start reading faces. Our partner seems quiet. Did we do something wrong? Our boss doesn't respond to our email right away. Are we in trouble? Someone at dinner seems bored. Are we being too much or not enough? It's exhausting. And the reason it's exhausting is because we're trying to control something we can't actually control. Other people's reactions. We're putting our self-worth in their hands. The shift we need to make is to start seeking approval from the person whose opinion actually matters. Ourselves. Now, I know that might sound like I'm just saying, well, just stop caring what other people think. And that's not helpful advice. So let me explain what I actually mean. Think about it this way. When we're constantly looking outward for validation, we end up betraying ourselves over and over. We say yes when we mean no. We go along with things that actually violate what we believe. We present a version of ourselves that we think people will like instead of who we actually are. And then we wonder why we feel hollow inside. The internal shift is asking ourselves, am I living in a way that I respect? Would I be proud of how I'm showing up if nobody was watching? Can I look at myself and know I'm being honest? And this doesn't happen overnight. For most of us, we've spent decades building our entire identity around external approval. But we can start small. We can start noticing when we're about to do something just to make someone happy and pause. We can start checking in with ourselves before we automatically accommodate. The goal is not to stop caring about other people. The goal is to include ourselves in the equation. The second shift involves replacing unspoken deals with honest communication. Here's something most nice guys don't realize we're doing. We're constantly making these unspoken deals, what Robert Glover calls covert contracts. These are secret agreements we make in our heads without the other person knowing. So we might think, if I'm helpful and accommodating, then they'll appreciate me. If I don't rock the boat, then they'll want to be close to me. If I sacrifice my needs, then they'll take care of me without me having to ask. And to be clear, yes, it is fair to expect reciprocity in relationships. We help each other out. We don't need to keep score. I'm there for you when you need me, and you're there for me when I need you. I can count on you. You can count on me. This is nuanced but important to understand. Covert contracts aren't just healthy give and take. They're putting someone else on a pedestal above ourselves, doing excessively for them while neglecting ourselves, and then secretly expecting that they'll start giving to us the same way in return. The problem is the other person never agreed to any of this. So when they don't hold up their end of a deal that they don't even know exists, we feel betrayed. We feel used. We build resentment. And here's the honest truth. This is manipulative. And I know that might be hard to hear. Most people who do this are not consciously being manipulative. I know from my own experience, I was clueless that that's what I used to do. I wasn't trying to do something sneaky and manipulative. We think of ourselves as the good guys, And we probably actually do want to be helpful and kind. We're trying to get our needs met in a way that we believe should work, but probably aren't consciously aware that that's what we're doing. But when we give with a secret expectation of getting something back, that's not generosity. That's being nice instead of being genuinely kind. Nice is strategic. Kind is freely given. So the shift we need to make is moving from covert contracts to authentic self-expression, aka saying what we mean and meaning what we say. That means we start saying what we actually want directly, without hints, without expecting people to read our minds. So instead of washing her car and secretly expecting intimacy later that evening, you can just wash her car if you want to, just to be kind and then not expect anything in return. That is genuine kindness. And if you want sexy time, then own that and ask. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, this is terrifying at first, I know. Nice guys are usually very uncomfortable expressing our needs, especially if it involves sexuality, even though having sexual needs is a normal part of being a grown man. Most of us learned early on that our needs were inconvenient or too much, so we learned to hide them. We suppressed them. We learned to be low maintenance. We learned to present ourselves as easygoing and flexible. And the thing is, we can still be flexible as long as we're being honest. Real relationships do involve give and take. And as long as that works both ways, then there's nothing wrong with going along with what other people want when we truly don't care. Or we just understand that something is really important to them and we want to give them that. But other times we really do care, and that's when we need to learn to speak up. We need to understand that when we start expressing ourselves honestly, sometimes people will say no. Sometimes there's friction. Sometimes we don't get what we want. And that's actually okay, because at least now we're dealing with reality instead of managing a fantasy where everyone should just know what we need and give it to us. And if they don't, we feel resentful and become passive aggressive. Let me give you an example. Maybe your partner makes plans for the weekend for both of you without checking with you first. I wouldn't like that either. The old pattern might be we go along with it, act like it's fine, but quietly resent them for not considering us. The new pattern is we say, hey, I need us to check in with each other before committing our weekends. I actually had something else I was going to do this weekend. That might create tension. That might feel defensive. But at least now we're being honest. We're being real. At least now we're giving them a chance to actually know us and meet us halfway. The practice here is simple, but it's not easy. Start asking for what you want. Start expressing how you actually feel, even when, especially when it's uncomfortable. The third shift involves developing the courage to be disliked. Now, this is a process, and it also takes time to learn. It's also where most nice guys get stuck. We can understand the first two shifts intellectually. We can even start practicing them. But then we hit the moment where someone's upset with us, someone's disappointed, someone doesn't like our boundary, and we cave. Because what we're really afraid of is being disliked. We've built our entire identity around being the accommodating one, the helpful one, the guy everyone can count on. And if we start saying no, start setting limits, start showing up as who we actually are, we're terrified people will reject us. And our worst fear is often that we'll be alone, a life that's essentially solitary confinement. And here's the truth. Some people will dislike us. When we stop overfunctioning, some relationships will end. When we stop being endlessly flexible, some people will be annoyed. When we start having opinions and preferences and boundaries, we will become less convenient. But here's what's important for us to understand. The relationships we lose by being authentic are relationships we never really had in the first place, because they weren't based on who we actually were. They were based on a performance. And the exhaustion of maintaining that performance, of constantly contorting ourselves to keep everyone happy, is the hell we're trying to escape from. The shift here is learning to tolerate the discomfort of disappointing people. Learning that someone being upset with us doesn't mean we did something wrong. Learning that we can survive someone's disapproval. And this shows up everywhere. Maybe we need to tell a friend we can't help them move this weekend because we just don't have the extra time. Maybe we need to tell our partner we're not okay with how they talk to us when they're stressed. Maybe we need to stop being the default solution to everyone else's problems when it's costing us our own well-being. And when we do that, we're going to feel everything we've been avoiding our whole lives. The guilt, the fear that we're being selfish, the anxiety that we're damaging the relationship. This is when we need to remind ourselves that guilt is not a reliable compass for living a life of integrity. Because on the other side of that discomfort is something we've never really had. Real relationships. Relationships where people who know us as we actually are. Where we're loved for being ourselves, not for just what we provide. Where there's actual intimacy instead of just accommodation. So I hope it's clear at this point that I'm not saying become selfish or stop caring about people. I'm not saying relationships don't require compromise or sacrifice sometimes. What I am saying is that there's a massive difference between choosing to do something for someone because we genuinely want to and doing it because we're afraid of what happens if we don't. There's a difference between healthy interdependence and losing ourselves entirely. The transformation out of nice guy hell is about reclaiming ourselves. It's about building a life where we're not constantly betraying who we are to keep other people comfortable. It's about finally including ourselves in the equation. It's important to acknowledge that this is hard work. These patterns are deeply ingrained. We've been practicing them for decades. There will be moments where we slip back into old habits. There will be relationships that don't survive our growth. There will be grief and discomfort. But the alternative is staying exactly where we are, staying exhausted, resentful, and disconnected, spending the next 10 or 20 years performing a version of ourselves that isn't real, missing out on what actual intimacy and connection feel like. So if you're recognizing yourself in this, you're at a decision point. You can keep doing what you've been doing, or you can start with that first shift, turning inward for validation instead of outward. You can start practicing the second shift, saying what you actually want instead of hoping people will guess. And you can start building the third shift. Start getting comfortable with the reality that not everyone will like the real you, and that's okay. If we're working our way out of people-pleasing, building self-respect is also a big part of it, and it's sort of integrated in the things I've been talking about today. I made a video about that might help. You can watch it here if you'd like. And if something in this video resonated, I'd love to hear what stood out for you. I really appreciate it when we can reflect on these things together. And for those of you who have asked, yes, I now have a channel membership and super thanks available. That support helps me put more time and effort into this work, and I'm genuinely grateful for it. Thanks for your support. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself.